consults on technology and does training with it, and she's going to talk today about so many different things you can use with iPads and QR squared, which right? Or QR codes, which I've seen them, but I didn't really know what you can do with them until now, and saw some presentations, very, very good, so I'll turn the time over.
Thanks. Yeah, so thanks for having me. I am actually an Aggie class of 08. Very good. Y'all were much better than the morning than there's fewer of you. So my first day, my first year teaching, I had 16 fourth graders staring at me, and I gave them all a piece of blank white paper. And they had their new markers and crayons and everything, and I was all excited, and I had, mapped out every moment of this first day of teaching, right? Like down to the second, like nothing could possibly go wrong, right? And I had backup plans as well. But I was in kind of my hippie teaching mode at the time, and I was like, I want you to express yourself to me on this blank piece of paper, and just tell me about yourself, thinking I was going to get these miracle works of art from my fourth graders, just expressing themselves and all this stuff. And so after about 5 minutes of silence, one of my little kids, Christian Castillo, bless his heart, raised his little hand gingerly and said, "Miss, what do you want it to look like?" Oh, and my little teaching heart was crushed on my first day of teaching, because what I realized was my students already thought there was a right and wrong way to do school. They already thought there's a right and wrong answer. Surely Ms. Clark is going to show us a model of what our souls should look like on a piece of white paper, right? Surely she's going to tell us how we should express ourselves on this piece of paper. And all I wanted was for them to tell me a little bit so I could get to know them, right? And so I tell you that story because I really think that something that I'm really passionate about going back into the classroom is joy and creativity. Bringing joy and creativity back into the classroom. And that's something that technology can definitely play a role in. But today we're going to talk about pairing technology with pairing the physical manipulatives, the touch and feel and drawing crayons and things like that, with the digital. So think of this as adding a layer of technology on top of the things that you're already learning to do, or the things that you did when you were in the classroom. I still remember when I was really, really little, pre-K or maybe even younger than pre-K, this little counting game that was basically a piece of laminated paper. It was a laminated pond, and I had little ducks, and I could count the little ducks in the pond, and I was learning how to count. Does anyone else remember that same one? I don't know if it was multiple teachers made that. With you remember this?
I made it.
You made it. Okay. So same concept. So and adding a layer onto that. So before I was teaching I taught in bilingual fourth grade in Pasadena ISD. Not the pretty Pasadena in California, the one south of Houston, also known as Stinkadena. Anybody from there? Yeah. The factories there and stuff. But my last semester of A&M, I was actually a Spanish business major, so I wasn't an education major. I was planning on doing bilingual speech pathology, was my original kind of path. But my awesome advisor here at A&M sent me abroad to Mexico, and I was a teacher in the public schools of Mexico. And so it was one of those, either, I still don't know to this day, either lost in translation or he was kind of pushing me a little bit outside my comfort zone. I thought I was going there to be a teacher's assistant because I didn't have any teaching experience at this time. I got there and I was the teacher. And I had 3 classes of 45th graders, 3 classes of 46th graders, and then I worked at a special needs school, kids 10 to 29, with all different undiagnosed special needs, all in my second language. And so after that, I decided to go into teaching for some reason. So when I came back, I got my master's in early childhood special ed. I was just really interested in the role of technology. And over time, so again, Spanish and business, no interest in technology originally, but what I saw was when I started using it, I had some opportunities to use it in my classroom. I saw what it did for my kids. And I saw the creativity and the possibilities. The same things that I was interested in kind of my artsy hippie mode, I saw what we could do with that with technology, and how it could almost clone me and allow me to be multiple places and do creative things. So that's just a little bit of kind of the backstory about how I ended up here. And now I do IT consulting, and I run a professional development department where we train teachers across the state on how to integrate technology into their classrooms. So today, this part is pretty fun. Most of it is not going to be me up here talking. It's going to be you guys exploring my centers. And so these have come about, some of these came directly from my classroom, like my little fishing station up here came directly from my classroom, and then I just thought about where can we add a layer of technology? Where can we have technology that's either enhancing the lesson or transforming the lesson? Because if it's not doing one of those two things, why are we using it? And so thinking about where we can pair some of these manipulatives. So I'm using a s'more for my presentation. It's basically a giant virtual flyer. And so if you want all these resources, because we're not going to get to everything today, this is the link right here. If you want to write that down, if you want to type that into your devices, I would encourage you to go ahead and go there because you're going to need it for some of these centers. So go ahead and on one of your devices, one of your many devices, if you would plug this in and make sure you're on the Wi-Fi. Let's just take care of those logistics real quick. And get there to that s'more. And this will have all the resources and then a couple links to some of the activities here in case you don't get to see everything. So maybe help your neighbor get there if they're having trouble getting there. It's just s'more.com/BYKG. Okay, I'm gonna tell you one more little story while y'all are getting there. The other, I had these childhood encyclopedias, and I had one that was called Make and Do. I don't know if any of y'all remember those. I think they were childcraft encyclopedias. They had like animals and planets and Aesop's fables, but one was Make and Do. And so that's where my title came from. I was thinking back, so it's Make and Do for the little iPad crew, and I like rhyming things as well, like Lisa. But I couldn't find it. My mom doesn't have it anymore. I don't know if it got, our house flooded a long time ago, so it might have gotten lost in that. But I found this one at Target that kind of reminded me of it, Kid Made Modern. And when I was younger, you know, this was the one that was in my backpack all the time and covered in paper mache because I wanted to touch and do and make and create. And so kind of that same spirit came to thinking about these centers here too. So is everybody able to get on? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and scroll down. Okay, I'm not going to bore you with research because A, we don't have time and your brains are already probably a little bit full. But I am a little bit of a research nerd, and one of the things that I started thinking about when I started pairing the physical, again, with that technology was just not getting into the habit of saying what cool shiny tool could I use, but instead really what's going to be effective. And so these are some research links to look at later, but one of them that I think is really important that you might hear if you go to different conferences is called TLAC. And I put this in my presentation for the past, at least 3 or 4 years, but I can't stop because it's just so simple. The idea is this, that technology in and of itself, technology in isolation, so throwing 100 iPads in a classroom and saying peace is not what's going to make the impact. We have seen over and over again, if we have not learned our lesson by now, shame on us, because we've done it with many different technologies and it still doesn't make the impact. But what does make the impact, where the power is in this sweet spot here. And this is the foundation. Pedagogical knowledge, good teaching practice. Hopefully what you guys are learning now, if you're pre-service teachers, what you're learning out in the schools, what you continue to learn as a teacher. I love that Lisa said this morning, you never stop learning. That is so true. I've learned, I think, more in the past 2 years just because of a couple experiences I'm getting to be a part of. One, building an educational app that I never thought I would be involved in at all. But I learned more in the past years, I think, than I have in the past 10. Because just of opportunities and things that have happened. And I thought after school I would be kind of done. And then especially after my master's, I was like, okay, now I'm really done. But it keeps going. So I think continuing to be a learner and exploring that pedagogy. And then obviously content knowledge, knowing our content, that's important, right? And then thinking about these overlaps. So if I am teaching a history lesson and I want to be using small groups and doing kind of project-based learning, what technology could support, enhance, transform that? So I don't start with the technology. I start with what pedagogy am I going for here? What content am I using here? Okay, so this is kind of that sweet spot in the middle. That's a really short explanation of it. If you want a long research paper on it, there is one, but I know, probably not exciting. But if you want more on that, or if you have to use it for a paper or something, just you can reference this. I'm giving you research here you can use in your papers. And then I'll just say something really quick about visible thinking. I have a whole session that's specifically on this concept, but it's this idea of when kids raise their hand and we get feedback from them, we are getting a little snapshot maybe of what they know. But thinking about where technology can support making student thinking visible, not just for us, but for them as well. Because all the research on metacognition, on students thinking about thinking, says when students are able to understand their own thought process, they do better, basically in summary, right? So if I don't know I stink at, fractions or something, then I don't know I have anywhere to go. But when they understand where they are and kind of where they are on that learning journey, then they can make it there quicker. So there's a little bit on visible thinking there. And in SAMR, I'm sure if you go to any technology conference at some point, you're going to hear a little bit about SAMR. But this is the last research framework I'll just touch on. It talks about basically the S stands for substitution, A is augmentation, M is modification, and R is redefinition. And a lot of times it's presented as a ladder, but one of my friends, Greg Garner, said it's a little bit more like a swimming pool. And so sometimes you might use technology to substitute. Maybe you're just using it like going from a pencil to a Word document. Sometimes that's okay. But thinking about where you can augment, where you can add on to that, where you can modify, and lastly, where you can redefine. So some of the lessons that we got to hear about from Molly at lunchtime, I mean, to me, that's totally redefinition. I mean, those kids, the empathy and the soft skills that they built, and those stories are incredible, and something that technology enabled. But do you see the TPAC there? Her pedagogy, her content knowledge, her support of that, it wouldn't have been possible without that. Yes, the technology had to be there, and the technology in that case helped redefine, but it also had that pedagogy and that content. So that's a really quick overview of kind of the research, and I just can't talk about the rest of this stuff without you guys kind of getting that framework. But those are some of the pieces of research that have defined how I craft professional learning opportunities for the teachers in the districts that I work with. And so, okay, so now let's get to the fun stuff. I want to just get a baseline of, does everybody know how to scan a QR code? Because that will be important for our stations. Does anybody not? You don't have to be embarrassed. Okay, I'm going to go through it real quick just so you can follow along when we get there. One of the apps that I really like to use for this, just if you have it on your iPad or you can download it, is called Enigma. There are tons of QR scanners. There's Scan and QR Scanner. I like Enigma because sometimes if I'm not even right on it, it will scan it for me. And so basically, it's just a link. So you scan it and it goes out to a website, or it could go out to an audio file, something that has a link behind it. Or you'll have some centers where you scan it and a word pops up. And so I've just set that up kind of behind the scenes, and I'll show you guys how to do that. But as you go around, if there's a QR code, you would just open up an app like Enigma or a QR scanner and hold your camera over it, and you can scan it, and it pops up. And I can help you guys because we have a small enough group this time. Last time it was everywhere. So if you guys know how to do that, that's going to be kind of step one. And then let me talk to you a little bit about the centers, and then I'm going to let you go, I promise. Let you go explore. Okay. Over here, this whole section over here, bless you, is going to be a series of science centers. So these are based mostly on 5th and 7th grade-ish science teaks. And so as you explore these, the thing that you will use to kind of track your learning through these is going to be on my s'more. Okay, so follow along. If you haven't been listening, this part's really important. If you're on my s'more, where it says make and do science samples, there's a link. And this link is going to go to something called a type form, which is basically just like an online quiz. And so if I press start, it says, what's your name? And then it walks you through the different questions. This is just a place to kind of show your work. So, and I wanted to model this so you could see, how do you know that the student actually did something here? Well, you could have something like this to kind of track their learning through. So if I'm at station A, there's going to be a question here, but the question is also going to be on your iPad or on your device on the type form. Does that make sense? Am I scaring anybody? Okay, so when you get to these stations, you click the link on the s'more, and that helps you kind of walk through these. You don't have to do them in order because the way I set it up was such that you could just scroll down and go to another one if there's too many people somewhere. But I'd really like you to explore these as if you're a student. And so really try them out. If it says make a video, make me a video. If it says play with sock puppets, like it does over here, play with sock puppets. And so that'll be the science stations. The math work the same. There's a link, and the math stations are all going to be back here, and they have green little frames for these, and so there's all the material you need here. And then the rest of these are kind of a mix of different things. And all of these folders have the materials inside or on top, and then they have a label with the TEAC that it addresses. Okay, I'll tell you about how I made these at the end. And last thing I want to tell you over here, this one needs a little bit of explanation. This is probably my favorite activity because I love animals and I love alpacas especially, my little alpaca friends. And so I have pictures of habitats here. Okay, so I'm telling you this one so you don't cheat, okay? So I've got habitats and I've got little animals. You, with your group, you can get a group of a couple people, are going to figure out, okay, does my alpaca go in where is this, Antarctica? Probably not. I'm going to help you with that. And so I put these wherever I think they go, and then after that, I scan the QR code on the back, and that actually takes me to a picture. And it's going to be a picture of the right animals on the right card. Okay, so can you imagine the little ones that aren't yet reading? They can scan the QR code, see a picture. Oh, the alpaca doesn't go in the ocean. Okay, I gotta try again. So that's how that one works. And then there is one little station over here. I'm just pointing it out. So because it's not on a table like these, I ran out of tables. They even brought me extra. And there's a fishing station up here. And I think that, oh, and then there's some maybe back in that area. Let's see, back over here. Okay, so really the directions are explore. This is totally how my classroom was, free for all exploration. And I'm going to give you about 20-30 minutes. And then I just need about 5-10 minutes at the end to wrap up a little bit. So I really want you to explore. I'll be here to help. And maybe get in groups of 2 or 3 or make a new friend and go forth and explore. Any questions? Okay, ready to go. I wanted to ask real quick, what were some of the activities that kind of stood out to you that you can think of either taking back to your classroom or just in ideas if you guys are student teaching or thinking about teaching? Any of them that stood out to you?
I really like the
My animals?
animal and biome kind of thing, because I could see that even going all the way from elementary, even to high school with biomes and stuff. And then the thing I was telling you that I liked was that because we teach their senior methods for science elementary here, and to have something that they can do that doesn't require reading or something, having pictures, that was a really
Right.
neat concept there
Right.
to have. So, and
And that was the exact purpose behind it, to show you that you didn't have to have the kids read something necessarily they're not reading yet. That the technology can help be an accessibility feature for them, really. You know, or how to read it aloud to them. Like any of the audio recordings that you guys heard could have been reading a page aloud to them or reading an answer aloud to them. So what else stood out to you guys?
I like the QR code things with the cookie, like setting
Oh,
it
okay.
in order. So I was talking with my group and I was like, oh, you can do that with so many different things, not just the problem solving method, like the scientific method,
Right.
the food chains, all of that. You can create them and it's a
Awesome.
fun way to.
Yeah, cool connection. Yeah, sorting something in order. Anybody else?
I like the science thing in the online where where you type in your answers.
Yeah, I wanted to show that piece to show like how, because a lot of times it centers, you wonder what's really happening there. Are you like coloring each other, or are you actually like accomplishing something? So it's just a way to track them through. I included the link. I'm not going to be able to show you how I built all that, but I included the link to Typeform. And Typeform is just an online little quiz builder. It's a survey creator, and it's really, really simple and it's free. There's lots of other sites you can use for that, but I thought that one did a very nice visual job, and I wanted to find one where you could skip questions and go kind of move around for this particular activity. And then I wanted to tell you guys, this is usually a much longer session. I would show you how I made like a lot of the individual activities, but what I did do is a lot of the activities, if I got them from somebody's blog or things like that, the original idea, like for example, the bottle caps that went to some numeracy. Here's the link to the blog there, and I just downloaded those resources, printed them out, and so I included those here. The vowel checking activity, all those pictures, I didn't make all those pictures, somebody else did, and it's a free download, so I included any of those links here. If you guys have questions about any of those, I did want to explain just one thing to think about. A lot of those ones that were QR codes, just think about wherever you're having them go. So it's kind of like adding a digital layer, right, with the QR code. Wherever that link is going, okay, it has to be stored somewhere, right? So thinking about something like Dropbox or Google Drive is really imperative for being able to set up things like this. So all my Habitat pictures are just in my Dropbox, and then I just have a link for my Dropbox picture, right? And so the QR code just links to that picture. It sounds complicated, but you do it 1 or 2 times and it's like, oh, that's all I have to do? And the same thing with my voice recording. That was in an app called Croakit. And Lisa used it this morning. When you record your voice on Croakit, it's a simple record and you get a link. So I'm always looking for sites where I get a link. Because if I get a link, then I know I can put it into a QR code and pair it with the physical. And so, some people are like, oh, QR codes are outdated, they're overused. I think when used effectively, they can really still be a very beneficial tool because I like how they pull me back to the physical, how they allow me to have the kids moving and touching and feeling and experiencing these things. And then one other question that came up was, how did I make those little labels that are on the folders? The little labels that have the teats on them. I made those with Avery.com, Avery, the label company. I am one of those people that printing boggles my mind, like printing the right way. I don't have spatial orientation at all, so I'm like, do I move it this way or this way or this way? But Avery.com, you just type in the template that you're using. So that was actually labels that are supposed to go on jars in your pantry. And so, surely we'll use them for folders. And so I just typed that in, and then it gave me a template. I typed in the teats and just copy and pasted them from TA's website, and then I printed them out to have on that folder. So I thought that was helpful to be able to go back and think, what's the learning objective? And so if we think back to kind of my little beginning story, there's a bunch of links in here that you guys can have for later. I know we're not going to be able to do any of that. But if you think back to my beginning story about the blank piece of paper, I really want you guys to know, whether you're pre-service teachers or you're in the classroom right now or wherever you are, to really encourage you guys to kind of take your blank canvas and start with that learning outcome. What do I want my students to learn? How do my students learn? And then let the technology kind of be that supporting role, that transformative or enhancing role. But it doesn't have to be complicated. Some of these stations just had the camera on the iPad. But a really powerful lesson when you have the students actually thinking about the sun and earth and how it all rotates. I know they're not to scale, I'm sorry, science people. My earth is deflating here. But it really can be your own creativity. I really encourage you to just bring some joy into the classroom. So all my contact information is here. As a former Aggie, I would really love to help my Aggie teacher friends and everything, and even if you're not an Aggie, all my contact info is there. Feel free to connect with me on Twitter, or email me, or call me, I don't care. So thank you guys, and have a great afternoon.